this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about how you can make really powerful, aligned decisions when you find yourself at a crossroads in life, whether this means feeling stuck, feeling uncertain, or overwhelmed. If you are struggling to get clear in life, to create the life, the wealth, the family, the pursuit of happiness that you desire, it is probably not because you're at a decision point. It's more often than not because you're actually at an indecision point. And that's a big difference. So let's get you out of that stuck place. Let's get you into action, into aligned action, and let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming You podcast. I'm Rebecca Cafiero. I'm your host, your guide, your go-to girl for the how-to. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about how you can make really powerful, aligned decisions when you find yourself at a crossroads in life, whether this means feeling stuck, feeling uncertain, or overwhelmed. We're going to be diving into three key questions that these have transformed my life. They've transformed the lives of my clients, and they're questions that are going to help you move from feeling stuck, feeling undecided, into clarity, and into taking inspired action. So if you've ever felt like you're spinning your wheels, you're uncertain about which way to go, this episode is for you. But before we dive into the questions, I want to get clear on one thing. If you are struggling to get clear in life, to create the life, the wealth, the family, the pursuit of happiness that you desire, it is probably not because you're at a decision point. It's more often than not because you're actually at an indecision point. And that's a big difference. So let's get you out of that stuck place. Let's get you into action, into aligned action, and let's jump in. So the first question I want to share is this. So grab your pencil, paper, whatever you're taking notes on, and write this down. Am I running away or am I being pulled towards something? This is the first question in discernment that I always ask. And I want you to ask this to yourself. Because when you're faced with a decision, you need to get really honest about your motivation. Right? Are you trying to escape something that's uncomfortable? Or are you actually being drawn to something that excites you, that lights you up, that is aligned with a deeper purpose or your evolution? So I'm going to share a little personal story. Back in April of 2022, I was offered an opportunity to co-found a company. At the time, I was already running two businesses and I had two small children, like I still do. And my very first thought was, I have no bandwidth for this. But my curiosity kicked in. I started to wonder, what if this is something I'm meant to do? What if this is part of my future? And the person who offered me this was someone I really respected. And they said something to me that I could not get out of my head. He said, I've had this idea for years, and I believe that you're the person to bring it to life. And so let's be real, my ego was very flattered. And I started to get really excited. But I stopped and I thought for a moment. And I asked myself, am I interested in this because I'm afraid of missing out, right? Or is this a true calling? Is this where I am meant to go as a human being, as a business owner, and as a soul? Because I want you to understand that it's not about making FOMO-based decisions. I have learned that the hard way. I got involved in a startup about a decade ago because I didn't want to miss out on what I thought was a billion-dollar idea. The reality is, had I been listening to my intuition deep down, I knew that partnership didn't feel right. My gut was telling me that this was not someone I wanted to go into business with, but I ignored that voice because I was afraid of missing out. And that decision that FOMO decision not only led to a really miserable year, it led to me losing a massive investment out and to so much unnecessary time and stress until ultimately I realized my intuition was right. I should have been listening from the beginning. So when this opportunity came along in 2022, I knew I had to ask myself, am I running away from something or am I being pulled towards something that's really aligned with my purpose? And that's a question I want you to ask yourself too. Are you actually drawn to something greater or are you trying to escape some type of discomfort? Because if you're trying to escape something, if you have a pattern of self-sabotage, of whatever it is, that pattern will repeat itself unless you go back and you fix it, which might be fixing yourself, fixing a belief, right? But it's the answer to that question. Am I running towards it or am I running away from something that's going to make all of the difference in the world? And if you have determined that, no, I'm not running away from something, right? Because even if we change our surroundings, we change our job, our business, if we are running away, that thing will show up. But if we really aren't running, and this really is an opportunity that's calling us forward, enter question number 2, which is, are you running towards something that is really someone else's idea, someone else's passion, or are you called towards your own evolution? So the second question you need to ask yourself is like, am I pursuing something that's truly mine? Or am I chasing someone else's dream, someone else's solution? It is so easy to get caught up in someone else's excitement or in someone else's certainty. In the world of entrepreneurship, you can look around and you will find a million examples of someone that's saying, this is the thing that you have to do and you will have guaranteed success, happiness, fulfillment, enter your desired word here. But I want you to think about, is that something that worked for them? Does that actually mean it's going to work for you? The reality is that chasing someone else's version of success is never going to make you happy. In fact, I like to replace the word success with fulfillment. Right? And I learned this lesson really early in life. As a kid, as a teenager, I was the good kid by all standards. I got straight A's. I was the president of all of the clubs, the captain of the sports teams. Like, I had this desire, though, to follow my own path. And I will tell you that desire to pave my own way did not always sit well with the parents that I lived with, my mom and my stepdad. They had very different ideas of what success and happiness should look like for me. Or I should say they had different ideas of success versus what I thought of happiness. And when I didn't conform to their ideal path, there was a lot of tension. And when you are a minor that is living in someone else's household, you don't always have as much freedom as you do as an adult. And so one example that stands out is I chose cheerleading over a competitive sport that was very much what they wanted to do. And for me, cheerleading was something I loved. It was something that brought me joy. But to them, it wasn't a serious activity. And they made it really clear that they did not approve of it. And I can remember coming home from work one day, and this wasn't exactly about the cheerleading versus the other sport, but I came home from work one day. I'm at my waitressing job, and I found all of my belongings packed up in garbage bags on the front porch. And this was a not so subtle message that I wasn't welcome in the home anymore. And that experience, while so incredibly painful, it taught me something that was incredibly valuable. And as much as I would not wish on my worst enemy's children to find yourself your senior year of high school, basically more or less homeless or couch surfing, what it taught me that was so valuable is that I am responsible for my own happiness. And I cannot live my life trying to make other people happy at the expense of my own joy. So when you're making a decision, you ask yourself, if I'm pursuing something that's truly mine, or am I following someone else's blueprint for their idea of happiness, their idea of success? Because if you're not following your own path, you are never going to feel truly fulfilled. You're never going to feel like you have real freedom or autonomy. There is a saying I like that is, get ideas outside of yourself, but always find the answers within. So that's what question 2 is all about. So once you've asked yourself these questions, you're like, am I running away or towards? And if I am running towards, is this really mine? Or is this maybe the idea of a mentor or a thought leader that I love and respect, but this isn't right for me, for my life, for this time? Then you get to question 3. And the reality is that even with those 2 questions, sometimes we're still feeling stuck. We don't know, right? You're like, I don't know which decision to make. They both feel good. They both feel possible. So once you have an idea of 51%, 49%, then the question is, do you feel relief or regret? And this is one of my favorite techniques, especially when I still am feeling really stuck. And I use this anytime, in fact, time and time again, when I've made big decisions. Here's what you do. It's like the litmus test of decision making is you go to bed, or before you go to bed, you make a decision, right? So let's just say you're like, do I quit my job and start this thing, or do I stay for another year? You make whatever decision is right for you, and you draft an email to someone letting them know about your decision, your boss, your best friend, your future business partner. Now, don't send it. You could do a delayed send, but go to bed as if you've made the decision, even if you're not 100% sure what's right. Because the reality is you will not feel 100% sure until the decision is made. When you go to sleep and you wake up in the morning, see how you feel right when you wake up and you remember the decision you've made. If you wake up with a sense of relief, you wake up with a sense of excitement, peace, then you know you've made the right or the aligned decision, because there's really no right or wrong. But if you wake up feeling regret, heaviness, anxiety, then that can be a sign that you might need to reconsider. And the beautiful part is this is a decision you've made mentally. You don't have to necessarily burn the boats before you have this regret or relief test. When I have decided to fully commit to this new venture or when I decided to fully commit to this new venture in 2022, despite all of the challenges and the discomfort of taking on something new, I knew I was making the right choice, because up to the time I made the decision, I felt torn. But when I said, no, this is what I'm going to do. Now I still need to figure out how. But when I decided that it was for me, I felt this massive sense of relief, the sense of purpose. And that didn't mean that there weren't fears or there weren't uncertainties, but deep down I knew that this was the right path for the evolution of where I'm going, for my soul. And that's what I want you to listen for, those subtle feelings of regret or relief, because it's the subtle feelings that can sometimes guide you in making decisions that are really aligned. Our intuition, sometimes it screams at us, but often it doesn't. And one more example, I've shared that I moved to Carmel by the sea from Palo Alto, from Silicon Valley, from the hub of like all things tech and startup. And while I knew every time I was in Carmel, I was like, this place is the place for me. My body feels at home here. My nervous system is happy here. But I'd go back to Palo Alto, to my dream home that we had spent years designing and building, literally 8 years. And all of this certainty, right? This known kind of life. And I was like, is this the right decision to move to my vacation spot, to move to this dream that may not turn out to be in reality what I expect? And I'll tell you, I wrestled with massive anxiety about that for 6 months. I should have taken my own advice and just made up my mind. I told my husband, I'm like, I just need to make the decision. We decided not to make the decision until the first week of August. And I will say that once we made the decision and we told a couple of people in our life, literally like 3 people, by the way, I could have at that point undid the decision. I hadn't registered my kids for school. I hadn't really done anything other than professed my decision. And I woke up the next morning and my HRV, my nervous system, heart rate variability was like 30% higher. I slept unbelievably. My recovery on my whoop strap was in green. And I just felt the sense of peace and calm and relief. And I knew that this was the right thing. I wasn't running away from anything. I was running towards the evolution of my soul, my life, the best place for my family. I knew this. I knew it wasn't anyone else's idea because I've been selling my husband on it for the last decade. And in fact, I asked him, are you doing this to please me? Or are you doing this because it's also what you want? And it was really important that it was both of our decisions. So if you've asked all of these things, I have a bonus for you. Is what is the path of the least resistance to move forward, right? Because once we've made our decision, it's time to take action. It is not meant to make a decision and sit on it, right? Sometimes the easiest way to get started is just finding a simple, straightforward path to move forward. For me, it started out with just telling people. And then I was like, let's register the kids for school. Right? Let's find a doctor. Like it was some of those little things because action is non-negotiable. You cannot decide and then sit on it. So you've got to make a move, even if it's small steps. The universe is going to reward you. It rewards those who take action, those who move with intention. Even if the waters are murky, the outcome is uncertain, if you are willing to take the plunge, the universe will reward you. And for me, once I fully decided to commit to that 2022 business, which is called the Compassion Collective, once I decided to move to Carmel, I had to make tough choices. I had to let go of certain aspects of my existing business that, to be really honest, were no longer serving me. They served an old version of me. They were in alignment with me 4 years ago, but not me now or 4 years from now. And I had to create space for these new ventures, this new location, these new opportunities. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be moments of discomfort, but it's necessary. And I will tell you, on the other side of that discomfort was the space, was the clarity that I needed to move forward with purpose, with passion. So if you are at a crossroads in your life right now, if you're feeling stuck, you're feeling uncertain about which way to go on almost anything, I want you to take these 3 questions to heart. Ask yourself first, am I running away or am I being pulled towards something? Second, is this solution, this possibility mine, or is it someone else's idea? And then once you've made the decision, do you feel regret or relief? These questions are your compass. They're a guide to navigating difficult decisions or even small decisions with clarity and with confidence. And just remember, once you've made your decision, to take action, because even if it's just a small step, it's a small thing, moving forward with intention, you can trust that the universe is going to more than meet you halfway. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this episode has given you some really valuable insights and tools to help you navigate whatever crossroad you're at now or that is going to come to you in the future. And as always, I am here to support you on your journey to becoming the best version of yourself. So until next time, stay aligned, stay intentional, and keep moving forward to becoming more you.